Hello everyone and welcome back to this course on implementing high availability solutions with Windows Server 2019. We are in section 5 of the course, and in this video we are going to discuss and implement a scale-out file server. So let's get on to the lab and get started. Now, the first step in our process is to actually create the scale-out file server role on our S2D cluster here. And to give you a high-level detail of the process, we would create this SOFS role, and then we would be able to connect our previously created cluster to this SOFS role. And you'll see in a moment what I'm talking about. So, first of all, to create our file server role, our scale-out file server role, let's go about configure a role. Click next, select file server here. As you can see, I've already installed the file services prerequisites on all of the nodes in the previous videos if you've followed along. Click on next, and now instead of file server for general use, we will choose a scale out file server, again for application data, because we'll be using it for our VMs. Let's click on next. Let's give it a name, and let's name it S2D SOFS. Okay, click on next. And now this will go about and create my role here in a moment. I will be presented with the confirmation page, and then we will be able to actually start creating the role. It takes quite a while, as you can see, because it's configuring stuff in the background. Let's click on next and let it create the role itself. Now, the role being created here basically doesn't complete our process. There are some additional configurations that need to be done. Let me just click on finish here very quickly. There are some additional configurations that need to be done, as I said, in order to use the file shares that are will be served by this scale out file server for our VMs, right? So the first step in this is, let me quickly clear the DNS cache on this machine. And this is to allow me to have access to the file share view on the SOFS role. I will show you in a moment what I'm talking about. So let me do an ipconfig flush DNS. Okay, the DNS has been successfully cached. And now if I go here on my SOFS role, I will have access to the view, to this view I was referring about, to add a file share for our other machines to be able to connect. So let's click on add a file share, and we are presented with this wizard. Now, the file share we are going to be added will be an SMB share for applications, right? Because as you can see from the description, it's appropriate for Hyper-V and certain other data, application data. I'm going to click on next. I want to create it on SOFS and on the available storage in this cluster, which is C cluster storage S2D LAN 1. Let me click on next. Now we need to give this share a name. Let's call it, I don't know, my VM share. For example, my VM share. So the ultimate path would be S2D SOFS my VM share. Now, on the other settings, we need to make sure that the box to enable continuous availability is ticked, and this will be a must, because as you can imagine, we will use VMs on this share, and we will be live migrating the VMs between the nodes, and we want this share to be continuously available. Okay, let me click on next here. And now we are going to go about configuring the permissions. Of course, as you may be accustomed up until this point in our lab environment, I'm going to continue to cheat here by adding everyone with full permissions. But in your production environment, you wouldn't want to do this. In fact, you would need to give permissions to all your nodes computer accounts and to the cluster object computer account. Okay, full control. Another thing to make sure of is that on the share permissions, you want to allow everyone with full control. Now we configured the permissions. Let's go ahead and create the share, and the share is now created, but there's again one more thing to do to complete the process, and that is what we've done and what we basically need to do with all shares that are sitting on top of a cluster and you need several other machines or clients to access it. We need to set up the Kerberos constraint delegation. But rather than doing that process from the previous sections to go about in Active Directory users and computers and go on each machine on the delegation tab, I want to show you the PowerShell way to do it because there are some simple commandlets which actually simplify the process quite a lot. So let me open up my administrative PowerShell here. Let me clear the screen. And the commandlet you are looking for is enable SMB delegation. My SMB server will be my cluster actually. So it's S2D SOFS. And I think I've made a little mistake here. It's not actually my cluster, it's my cluster role. Basically my scale out file server role, which is going to be the SMB server parameter here in our commandlet. And my SMB clients would be first one cluster 1, and the second one would be cluster 2 as well, but we'll need to run the commandlet for both cluster 1 and cluster 2. So let me repeat that for cluster 2. Here we go. Now that what this actually does is enables constraint delegation for the CIFS service so that these machines can access the data here on my scale out file server role. Now that being said and done, I will see you in the next video where we'll be creating Hyper-V VMs in a disaggregated S2D cluster. I hope this has been informative for you and thank you for watching.